Okay, the archive for the March 8th office hours session should be running. I hope we have more luck this week than last week. People are getting, people are joining the session on Join Me, and they're trying to get into the audio conference. Can a couple more of you confirm that you can hear me okay? Miriam can hear me, Nita can't. Okay. It sounds like we're pretty good. I don't know if I mentioned, this software seems to be kind of like, this Join Me software isn't the best in the world, but it's fairly inexpensive, and I'm self-employed. I don't have a big budget for fancy professional software. So thanks for bearing with me. This format for doing office hours in the ALA course is unprecedented. You guys are experiencing this kind of thing for the first time. And frankly, this is, I think, a better format for office hours than what you would experience like in most universities where you pay a ton of money for virtual courses. So even though there's some audio problems and things like that, I still think that what we're doing is fundamentally pretty cool. I hope you're benefiting from it. Any questions before we jump into the lesson? We're gonna go through some stuff with views. Happy to take questions first, though. Okay, no questions so far, so I'm gonna, feel free to post questions anytime. I'm just gonna jump into the lesson. So the first thing we did this week was to create a very simple image gallery. So, and let me explain what I had in mind for this image gallery. This is simply a way to use views and Drupal and nodes and fields to create a page on your site that shows thumbnails of all the images, and then the thumbnails link through to the full-size images. So like a typical image gallery, I think ought to be grouped by content, by subject rather. So like you'll have a story time gallery, or a friends of the library, Sunday afternoon trash cleanup on the lawn, environmentally friendly gallery of some, whatever. I'm just making something up that's silly, but this assignment doesn't go that far. It's just simply a collection of all the images on your site. And if we have time today, I can show you how to extend this very simple image gallery to kind of start grouping images by subject, so that it kind of gets more of like a gallery feel to it. But first, I'll show the very simple way of doing it. So go to, actually, this chat window is always in my way. I don't even know if you guys can see my chat window on your end, but actually, so before You can't see my chat window. It's here for the archive mainly, so that people listening to the archive can see the questions that get asked. But it's just not coming through on the screen share version that you're seeing on your end. Yeah, I can move it on my side too, but no matter where I move it, it's always going to be in the way unless I move it onto my other monitor, and then it's outside of the frame of the archive. So anyway, I'm just going to, it's just going to keep getting in my way. But okay, so before I create this image gallery, I'm actually going to add some, I'm going to generate some content, just some dummy content that I can just have something to show. Okay, so I've created some images. If I go to content and filter by type, I can see that I have a bunch of images, and they just have dummy titles. And if I click through to one of them, I should be able to see that, well, there's a long description, and then there's a little image attached. And this is just a funny image with some colored rectangles and a circle. This is purely just dummy content, placeholder content, just so that I can create my image gallery, and you'll have something to look at. Okay, so now I'm going to go to Structure, Views, and I'm going to add a new view. I'm going to call the view Image Gallery. And then I want to show content of the type image. And I want to create a page. And I'm happy with this URL. So this view is going to be a page on my site, and it's going to show an array of a bunch of images, and then each little thumbnail image is going to click through to the main node. But this page that I'm creating is not a node. This is a view. Views can have URLs just like nodes can have URLs. So I want this to be a grid. I want the display to be a grid of fields. And I told you guys to display 12. Yeah, we can use a pager. Yeah, let's create a menu link. I want this to go into my main menu, and I'm happy with the link text image gallery. So let me just say I rarely use the grid display format. I can't think of a time when I've ever used the grid display format aside from this assignment. So normally I would create something like this image gallery. If I wanted this sort of a grid layout, I would create the image gallery as an unformatted list. Actually, most of the views that I create, every website has maybe average a dozen views per website. Probably most sites are more than that. Most of the time, the views that I create them as unformatted lists, or sometimes as HTML lists. Just depends on how I want the HTML to be output. So when I'm creating views, I'm more concerned with the HTML output, like the way that the code looks. I'm less concerned with the way that the end user sees it, because I can always use CSS to change the way that the end users um, I can change the way that the end user sees it with CSS. So if I wanted a grid-like display, I would just create an unformatted list of rows and use CSS to make it look like a grid. However, for this lesson, we well, it was just 100 times easier just to create a grid. Okay, I don't need a block. I could, like, I'm just kind of thinking out loud. I could easily create a block to put on my homepage or something with the most recent image from the gallery. That would be kind of cool, and it's fairly typical for websites to have like a little image block in the sidebar somewhere. But I'm not going to do that today. So I'll just hit continue and edit. So right now, the view comes with one field, and it's the title. So I want to add a field. So you guys know that you can just search here, and it'll narrow your list of fields. I don't need a label. I want to format this. I don't want the full image to show up in this grid. Remember, we're creating like little thumbnails, so I can choose one of these two, thumbnail or medium. I think thumbnail is like a little small, honestly, so I told you guys for this assignment to create medium, and then I want the image to link to the content. I want it to link to the full node with the title and the description and so forth. What are these image styles? Have you guys happened to poke around in your site config and look more into image styles? Well, we'll take a look at that in a minute. I think actually we talked about this a little bit in the office hours session where we created the image content type, but I will show you in a little more depth what image styles are, because it's pretty cool. But for now, let's just select medium and move on. Okay. Now we should start seeing something like a grid of thumbnails. These dummy images are all kinds of crazy sizes, so therefore the image styles are really crazy sizes. I'm sorry, the thumbnails are really crazy sizes because they get scaled down and they just look funny. When we talk a little bit about image styles later in this session, I can show you how to make that look a little cleaner. The next thing I had you guys do for this this lesson was to alter the style of the title. So what am I doing here? I'm changing the tags, the HTML that the data is wrapped in. So I want to customize field HTML, and I want each of these to be in heading 2. This decision is a little bit arbitrary. This is just to show you guys that you can customize the HTML that your view's data is wrapped in. So this could be H3 or strong or whatever you want. For the lesson I just chose almost arbitrarily H2. Then you can also create a special class for each field. So this will add a class to the tag that I'm wrapping my data in. So if I wanted to have a special class of if I wanted to have a special class for the titles in my image gallery, I could add the class image gallery title. So this is all stuff that's sort of preparing me for theming later. And you know, a lot of times when you're creating views, you're not really going to need to mess with this, but it is very handy to have when you need it. So that's why I wanted to show some of these options in the lesson. Does this make sense so far? This idea of wrapping the data in tags and adding classes? Let me know if you have questions. The final thing I had you guys do for this lesson is just to rearrange the output to put the image on the top. Again, kind of an arbitrary decision. Maybe you think the title would look better above the image. That's fine. It doesn't matter. I just wanted to show how to rearrange fields. So it's looking good. I'm going to save. Let me go back to my home page, and now I have an image gallery link on my menu. I don't like having the sidebars here, so you know, real quickly, let's just hide them from the image galleries page. Let me confirm that I have the URL correct. Yes. So I'm going to set up my block to show up on all pages except image gallery. I'm going to do that a few more times, once for each block. Okay, so now this is looking all right. I've got a grid display of 12 thumbnails. There should be a pager at the bottom, so I can page through to the additional thumbnails. And each thumbnail image links to the full post. And likewise, each title links to the full post. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about image styles. If you have any questions about what I've done so far, just feel free to post. But let's talk real quickly about image styles. The lesson doesn't really go into this, but it's I think right now we have a perfect opportunity to demonstrate something a little more advanced. So in configuration, image styles, I have a list of predefined styles for images, and this is, I think, you know, we see this a lot on the internet without really noticing what we're seeing, but you know, the example I like to use when describing image styles is that it's a lot like Flickr, where you upload one image from your camera, and like, it's, you know, if you have a newish camera, it's probably going to be a huge image, like you know, 3600 pixels by 2800 pixels or something huge. Maybe, you know, probably bigger than that, honestly. And then Flickr will automatically resize that image to several different sizes, like a little tiny thumbnail, a small one, a medium-sized one, a large one, and then you know, you'll have access to the original file. So Drupal has a built-in way of doing that as well. And you can add styles You can add as many styles as you want, and it just depends on the site that you're building. So if you have like a front page slideshow thing, you might have a style that's specifically created for your front page slideshow, so that you can ensure that the images are scaled and cropped to fit exactly the dimensions of your front page slideshow. And this kind of takes a little bit of burden off of your content managers, and like especially if you don't have like a graphics person on staff or somebody who's handy with resizing photos. It's just nice to have the CMS do a little bit of that for you. Let me demonstrate one possible style that we could use. Question Nita asks, this pulls all the images from the site into this page. That's a really good question that Nita just asked. And one thing I forgot to do in my view is I forgot to set up a filter. Or no, I did set up a filter. Let's go back and look at the view real quick. And then we'll flip back to image styles. This view pulls in the image field, the image field content. It pulls in the images from all content that is published and content of the type image. So this won't pull in images from your blog or whatever. It's only pulling in images that you create that have the content type image. And that's kind of why we set up this content type in the first place, was like, we set up the image content type predicting that eventually we would create this image gallery. So yeah, that's what's going on. Does that make sense? Okay, so back to image styles. I'm going to create a small image style that will make these. I want to create an image style that's going to work a little bit better in this setting here. I don't like how some of these long, skinny images are simply scaled without some cropping to make them fit a little nicer into the slot that we have available. Oh, another question. Where do we change the size of image from medium to something else? Okay, let's leave the image styles screen and we'll come back. Let's go back to the image galleries view. Okay, so when I set this up, I'm gonna edit my image field. When I set this up, I added the image field, and then I chose the style medium. So if I wanted to change that, I could just select thumbnail instead. Apply. Oh, where's my save? Well, you know what? You can even see it without. I don't even have to save it. You can see it right away. They're a little bit smaller than they used to be. However, I think medium looks a little nicer here. So I'm going to apply medium. Now, what I'm doing in image styles is I'm going to create a totally new image style, one that doesn't exist yet. So right now we have 3 available, thumbnail, medium, and large. I'm going to create another one called, let's call it image gallery style. You can call it whatever you want, and honestly, most of the time I give the styles a descriptive name, a name that describes the attributes of the image, not the subject matter or where it's going to be placed or whatever else. So normally I would use a naming convention like this: 260 by 280. and I know in my head that that means pixels. And let's just use that actually. So now that I've created a style, I need to add some effects to the style. So Linux servers, I don't know if I can say this about all Linux distros. Most Linux servers come with some software. It's a software package that just comes with the OS. It's called GD. I don't know what GD stands for, but it's a graphics manipulation library. And it just comes with the OS. And Drupal takes advantage of this graphics manipulations library, and in a simple way for you to configure without having to do any coding. And so what we can do is we can add some effects to our image style, and on the server side, based on these effects that we set up, the GD software package manipulates the image and actually creates a new image based on these specs that we're about to provide. So I want to select a new effect. Let's select scale and crop. So because some of my images are like really long or really tall and skinny, they're not fitting very well in the image gallery format that I have. So I want to scale and crop them to 260 pixels wide by 280 pixels high. And they'll look like this. So you can see here's, in this example, here's the original image. And here's the image that's been manipulated a little bit, so you can see it's cropped. And this is it's cropped and scaled. And this is all processing that happens on the server, and you don't really have any control of how it's cropped. But nonetheless, it can be a handy approach. Okay, so I've saved my new image style. Now I'm back on the View Edit page. I'm going to refresh the View Edit page. I'm going to go back to Edit the Image field. And in this drop-down list, I see my new image style. So I'm going to select it. Apply. And now they all have a uniform size. So this is going to look a little better in my on my view page, except that, of course, you can tell by the way these are pixelated that they are a lot of these are scaled up, and that's usually not desirable. But again, these are dummy images, and usually you're not going to be dealing with these funky shapes anyway. So this is just an example. So I'm going to click Save. Is this all making sense so far? Have you guys had a chance to play with this already? The only thing I don't like about this now is it's a little wide for the page. It kind of spills outside of the the regular width of the website, but that's just because I created an image style that's a little too wide. You would just have to tweak that in a real environment. Any questions or comments or thoughts, ideas? Um, let's take this one step further now, and I mentioned at the beginning of this session that typically image galleries would be the content of an image gallery would typically be grouped or divided by some kind of subject category, like story time or friends of the library, benefit dinner, whatever. So let me show one quick way to do that. In Drupal 7 has the ability to categorize content in something called taxonomy. So if I create a taxonomy vocabulary for my image galleries, you guys have worked with this already, I think. If I create, no, I'm sorry, a few of you have talked to me about this individually, but this is not. Sometimes I can't keep it straight. This is not really part of the assignment at all. So this is, again, some new stuff that I'm showing you. You can create taxonomy vocabularies and category terms and categorize your content that way. And then in the view, I can actually just group my category, or I can group my content by category. It's pretty simple to do. So this is I'm just taking like a first crack at this idea of grouping images by category. And then there's much more advanced ways you could do it too, but I'm just going to show you a really simple method that I can do in the next few minutes. I'm going to add a vocabulary. You saw in that last screen that there was one vocabulary already called tags. I'm going to add a new one called images, or let's call it image galleries. Now that I have a vocabulary, I can add terms to the vocabulary. Story time. Let's add a few different terms. These are just all examples. I always use public examples from public libraries. I think we can all relate to those. I never use academic or corporate or medical or legal library examples, but that's okay. Friends, benefit, dinner. Now that I've created a couple of terms, I'm just going to leave that. Now I'm going to add this vocabulary to my content type. So before I can start categorizing my content, I need to add the taxonomy to my content type. So I'm going to go over to structure, content types. I have this content type called image. I'm going to hit manage fields. And I want to add a new field called gallery. And the field type is term reference. So in Drupal 7, taxonomy terms are entities. That's the technical term. Taxonomy terms are entities by themselves. And if you want to categorize nodes with taxonomy terms, you have to pull the taxonomy into the node via this term reference field. So this is a little different than previous versions of Drupal. So if you've done this before in other versions, this is like a major difference with Drupal 7. So I added a new field called gallery. The field type is term reference. Let's just keep this as a select list. And then I'll hit save. I want my vocabulary to be image galleries, save field settings. I want one value per image. So each image can only be categorized once. And let's just change around the order of this a little bit. Hit save. Now let's go back to my find content page. And let's edit a couple images. So now I see this gallery drop down that wasn't there before. So I have two galleries available, Friends Benefit Dinner and Storytime. So I'm just going to categorize the first one as Friends Benefit Dinner. Let's edit the second one. Storytime. Let's do this a couple more times. Friends. Storytime. Save. So now that my content is categorized with these gallery categories, I can go back to the view edit. Now I can bring that category into my view as a field, and then well, let's do that first, and then I'll explain the next step. So I'm going to add fields. Now I search and I see this field called gallery, which is what I just created. I don't want to label. I'm actually going to exclude this field from display. It's going to be useful to us for the view as a whole, but I don't need this. I don't need this category to show up in every row of the view. Let's format this as. You have the option to format this as plain text or as a link. I'm just going to format this as plain text. I don't want that. I don't want that word Storytime to really link anywhere. I'm going to apply to all displays. Now in my format settings, so I hit. I went a little fast. So format grid settings. In my grid settings, I can group by the field gallery. Are you guys following this? I hope I'm not moving too fast, but I do want to get to the calendar thing too. So. There are a few other settings I could configure here, but I'm just going to group by gallery. And now you can see already that the content is grouped. Let me save. Okay, so I have this first group is Friends Benefit Dinner, and I could have sworn I categorized two different nodes as Friends Benefit Dinner, but there's only one showing up, so that's a little weird. Oh, I know why. Okay, hang on. Sorry, guys. I'm going to edit the view. Let's add a sort criteria here. Let's sort by gallery. Let's sort ascending. Oh. It's still only showing one. The next thing I need to do, I don't want that pager at all. I just want to show all my items on one page. There we go. So now all of my nodes are on the same page, and I've sorted by category, and it appears that the nodes without a category at all are kind of mixed in there in the middle, but that's okay. Let's hit save. And there we go. So we can see a really simple way to start creating, in a sense, like multiple galleries where images are categorized by subject terms that you pick. Any questions about this? If you guys want to take a look at this on your own, here is the link. Now let's really quickly do. Let's create a calendar. Actually, I've already created a calendar. As you guys know, this week there were some new some new changes to the Drupal calendar module, and so when I installed the new version of the module, when you guys followed the instructions in the assignment, you were getting some errors and things. So I'm going to demo the new way of creating a calendar view, which is actually a lot simpler than the old way, and the old way wasn't too complicated itself. I have a calendar right now that I created for the revised instructions. I'm going to delete that calendar view, and I'm just going to start over again. And there's a question here. Can you add description for the different galleries too? Yeah, you could have a description for the gallery. So the way you would do that, I'm just gonna describe the way that you would add a description for the gallery. I'm not gonna demo it because we're starting to run out of time. But every taxonomy term can have a description. So go to the taxonomy term edit page, and you could add a description. And then in your view, you could pull in the taxonomy terms description as part of that header. I think you could do that straight away without having to do anything more advanced. But as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, well, maybe it might be a little more advanced than what I'm describing, but not terribly. Poke around, see if you can figure it out. If you can't, just email me, and I'll describe how. I want to move on and show this calendar thing because we've only got about 15 minutes left. Okay, so I deleted the calendar that I had created on this demo site already. That way I can start fresh. So the previous way of creating a calendar was to enable this calendar view, and you can see it says deprecated. This means they don't want you to use this method anymore. So instead, you're supposed to add a new view from template. And calendars can work with any date on the site. So you could theoretically make a calendar of all the blog comments. There could be a calendar entry for the date that each comment was created. And I don't know why you would do that, except maybe for statistics purposes or something like that. But you can create a calendar for any date in the site. It doesn't have to be specifically the date that's associated with your event. But for this assignment, we want to create a calendar based on the date that's associated with our event content type. So let's add a calendar for the field date 2, which is what I called my date field. And that was back in week 2, I think, when we created the event content type. So I can create a calendar based on field date 2, and I want to call this my event calendar. Hit continue. And basically everything else is done for us. The calendar will start immediately populating itself with some events and the dates associated with them. This is, again, just like some dummy content that I created. But it demonstrates that the calendar works right out of the box. I think, one thing that you might want to do is add a filter for content type, so that we're only pulling in events. I'd say that's optional though, because you could easily have a calendar that has multiple content types associated with it. I'm working on a project right now. We're launching tomorrow, and the calendar has events, and it also has like scholarship deadlines and application deadlines and things like that are not actually stored in the CMS as those scholarship deadlines are not stored in the CMS as events. They're stored as like scholarship listings. So I guess just by describing that, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense probably. But anyway, what I'm saying is you can have multiple content types in your calendar. It doesn't just have to be just one. But for this calendar, let's filter the calendar to show only events. Let's look at the preview. It still looks good. I don't like this path, so I'm just going to shorten the path to make it a little more user-friendly. And I want to add the calendar to my menu. As a normal menu entry, I need it to say calendar, not month. And I want to add it to the main menu. Hit save or hit apply. And that's all I'm going to do. So this calendar should be good right away. So the new way of making a calendar in Drupal is a little bit simpler than the old way. I hope that you guys didn't get too tripped up by that last minute change. Let's take a look at my calendar, and it looks good. I think the last thing that I would want to do is, again, just disable some of these blocks for the calendar page. This is just a repeat of what I did for the event, the image gallery page. I'm just going to disable all the blocks so that my calendar can be a full page view. I just think that'll look a little nicer. Any questions while I'm finishing up this part of the assignment? So the calendar has a few features that you kind of expect with interactive online calendars. You can page through the dates. You can also look at a week view. Oh, that's nice. I think that's different than it used to be. I haven't really explored the new calendar stuff. Like I said, it just came out. This is actually really nice. Um, it didn't used to look quite like that. And the day view, I like that. And the year view. Honestly, though, usually I just disable week, day, and year and just show a month view. But they're all available. Cool, guys. Any questions? Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up? Can we do this for blog postings? You could create a calendar of blog posts if you wanted to. Is that what you're asking? Yeah, so you would just create a calendar from from the template, go through the same steps, and then just choose, here, let me just show you. Go to views, add view from template, and then you could create a calendar based on the created field, and hit add. And then let's filter this for only blog posts. And all my blog posts were created in the past, obviously. And so you can see that all my dummy blog posts are showing up as the dates that they were created. You could also use something like this internally to show like an editorial calendar of future blog post plans. So you could create some dummy blog posts, leave them unpublished, and set the created date into the future. And then treat it as kind of an editorial calendar for future blog posts. Again, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but those are some of the cool things that you could very easily do with Drupal, and you can get highly sophisticated without really doing a whole lot of work. Any other questions? Can we link the calendar to MS Office? You can create an iCal feed from the calendar. It should be. You can go to add feed. Seems like the one time I tried to do this, it didn't work. So this is just not something I do. You might have to ask me later how to do this. It might be another module. In fact, yeah, it is another module. Go to modules. Okay, iCal is deprecated. What have they used to replace it? Like I said, all this stuff just came out last week. So there's now a date iCal module. Oh, well, I don't have date iCal installed. Well, sorry, I can't demonstrate it, but it seems like the way that you would do this is to add the date iCal module, And then your iCal feed would be created through views. And I think MS Office can. I think you can import an iCal feed from Office. I think. Does that answer your question in a somewhat satisfactory way? Thanks. Oh, guys, next week I'm gonna be traveling on Thursday. I'm gonna post this to the forum. I have like a noon flight, so I'm just gonna be unavailable for this office hour session. So I'm happy to do this session on Wednesday. Friday will be unavailable. I'll be out of town. But next week is kind of the last week of the of the course, and so I'd like to finish up with one last office hour session. So I hope to do this on next Wednesday. I will post to the forum and get an idea of who's available. Otherwise, I think we're. Oh, the recorded sessions. I post those to YouTube, and then I post a link to the. The recorded, the YouTube video on the forum. So just go to the week's forum for the week for which you're searching the archive, and then you'll see a forum post with a link to the YouTube video. Except last week I screwed up the archive and I never redid it, so there's no archive from last week. Okay, guys. Yeah, thanks everyone. Okay, one more question. Oh, your ID, you're logged into the site, the eCourse, the classes.alaeditions.org. That login will remain active for like probably a few months. Certainly after next week, it'll still be active. And then, I don't really. ALA is paying for this server that I run the course websites on, so as long as they keep paying for it, your Sandbox site will stay up. Certainly for like a month or so after the course is over, you'll still have access to your Sandbox site. Okay. Week 4 question. I will answer the week 4 question. Thanks for the heads up. And guys, I think we're done for the day. Thanks everyone for coming. Looking forward to talking more in the forum. Have a good Thursday.